So to be an entrepreneur, really, it requires resilience. It requires adaptability. And my favorite term to use when it comes to entrepreneurs is their ability to pivot, right? You have an idea that you start with. You put a lot of money into it. And the difficulty for a lot of entrepreneurs is that once I put that much money in it, I mortgage my house, I'm all in, and the idea is not working. And then you think about all the money that you put in it, and you go, I can't lose it. You keep on putting more money in. And so when we tell entrepreneurs on the show, stop doing that, we're not trying to be mean. We're trying to help them because they're not seeing the disaster, and other people are seeing it. The problem is family members see it, but, they want to support you. Keep on going, Charlie. You can do this. But when they're going out to get funding from a third party, that third party is critical, and they're going to see it. So the ability to pivot is critical to a successful entrepreneur. Now, as we move ahead for today's program, we're going to talk about there's going to be a series of short presentations followed by a fireside chat that I encourage you to really pay close attention to. So to introduce our speaker series, Susan Lee is going to come up. Not yet. Susan's going to come up because I got this amazing long introduction about your credentials and all the great things that you've done. So over the course of Susan's distinguished career, she held prominent positions at CNBC, at Bloomberg Television, but she began our career working for a public broadcaster that I currently work for, CBC. And that's how she cut your chops, right? And that's what owned you to become the major journalist that you are, that Fox came over and said, you got to come and work for us, right? And you said yes, right? But you're from this beautiful country, and you went ahead and said, I'm going to go to greener pastures, but you still don't forget that you're from University of Toronto, you're an alum here, and you're from Toronto, and this is your opportunity to give back. So let's welcome Susan Lee to take it from here. Thank you.
Hello. I hope you can hear me. I have one of these lava mics on, so maybe I don't have to stand behind the lectern. I can just walk across the stage, do something innovative, since we're all here to do something innovative and entrepreneurial today. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here because when John and the entrepreneurship group asked me to come and host this panel and moderate during Entrepreneurship Week, I said I would want to be paid with food from the food trucks outside Sid Smith, and I hope they still have them. Do they still have the Taco Bell downstairs in the food court at Sid Smith? That was something that I really loved during my time here at University of Toronto. Gained a lot of weight, but that's okay. I love my time. Also, I would have loved if Wes had given me my diploma at the time, since he is the nicer dragon. Kevin O'Leary comes in a lot to our studio, and I can tell you he's not as nice as Wes. I'm kidding. I love you, Kevin. But thank you so much for having me here today. And I'm just so thrilled to be here, to be able to give back to the community and to give back to the university that really provided the foundation for my career and what I've been able to build all around the world, whether it's in New York, London, or Hong Kong. And so before we kick off and I introduce this wonderful panel that I get to be close to, because I'm hoping to increase my IQ just a few points by being close to these wonderful entrepreneurial and innovative professors, I want to tell you about my time here at the University of Toronto, because I'm one of 4 kids, immigrant parents that moved here with nothing. My mother, single parent household, raised 4 kids on her own, working hourly wages, and we didn't see her very much. But I want to tell you this, is that education is an opportunity. And the takeaway is you bet on yourself. I bet on myself. I didn't expect the career to have the career that I have had. So I want to tell you that you need to believe in yourself, and with this type of education and coming from this wonderful country and this city, you have an abundance of opportunity and a great foundation to work off of. So also go out there, create the next world-changing company and technology, but then you have an obligation to also come back to Toronto and to this university to give back to the next generation. And doing that right now, I get to introduce our wonderful panelists for you to learn from and to talk about this next evolution in technology and artificial intelligence. So the first presenter today is someone that we actually stole from Harvard. I'm very happy to have that wonderful expertise here. Alain has forgiven me if I don't pronounce his name entirely correctly, but I'll tell you this, that as such a world-class researcher that he is, I heard a rumor he might be the next Nobel Prize winner in the future. So coming up on stage, Alan Asper-Gruzik, who's also the Senior Director at NVIDIA Research and of course Computer Science here at the University of Toronto. Come on, Alan, don't be shy.
Hello, that's not true about the Nobel Prize, but sounds fun. Okay, so yes, so I am Alan Asper-Gruzik. I'm a professor of chemistry and computer science, and also of material science and chemical engineering. I've been here for about 8 years, as mentioned, and today I'm going to be telling you about the confluence of AI, robots, and materials, and what could that mean for innovation here in Toronto. It's very nice to be around all these innovators and people that are building companies. And I want to start with a picture of this monkey that you see over here behind me. Okay, and you see the monkey is there with a bunch of garbage. And I like to start with this because if you think about this, this image, you might have some sort of association with the monkey and say, maybe I can be that monkey, and maybe I'm in this field full of garbage, right? But you might not be that associated. Maybe you look at this stock photo, right? And you say, whoa, wow, this is another garbage dumpster. Turns out this is a stock photo of a garbage dumpster in Toronto, okay? So you're no more like, okay, look, maybe there's a lot of garbage in Toronto, literal garbage. And then when you look at the picture like this, then you realize maybe there's more garbage here than you think, okay? Now you see garbage just in front of our beautiful city. What's the point I'm trying to make here? Okay, materials, chemistry, and biology, all of those fields that we talk about are made of atoms and molecules, and these atoms and molecules basically are the largest sector of our economy. We don't think about it this way. Everybody's talking about software. You think about all the total addressable market that has to do with this. Not only it addresses most of the problems that humanity has, but also has a lot of urgency. Let me give you some examples. Everybody's thinking about, for example, garbage. Humanity does not recycle almost any plastic. Like, people believe that we are recycling plastics, and you put it in your recycling bin, and that's absolute BS. Like, almost no plastic that you put in the recycling bin ends up being fully recycled. Sometimes it's mechanically recycled into lower and lower class plastics, and yes, there are recycled plastics. But for example, in our own research group, we're trying to figure out how to recycle polystyrene. Every time you order something online or something and a horrible box comes out with this material, right? The question is, how can you turn that material back into its original form, in what is called the monomer that made the material, so you can actually take the monomer and make more polystyrene or another polymer, right? And that's extremely hard, right? So that's just the problem of recycling. And of course, you heard about microplastics, PFAS, which is this fluorinated compounds that we have. All of us have them in our body, okay? And you can keep going from those kinds of problems of the environment, and you can think about health. There are so many drugs that need to be invented, okay? And the process of inventing a drug involves discovering the molecule all the way down to giving it to a patient and going all to clinical trials. And every drug developed requires about $1 billion to go from idea to market, right? And the price of developing drugs keeps going up and up and up, okay? So that's another example of where materials come from. And also, finally, how are you going to get all the energy that we need? Now we're building all these data centers to do AI. How many of you have startups that have to do with AI? Raise your hand. How many of you have used ChatGPT or Claude or one of those things today? Okay, so look at that. Every time you do one of these queries, you're using a lot of energy. And the question is, where does energy is going to come from? So hopefully I convince you that materials are very important for society, right? So what we're trying to build here in Toronto is this idea of AI scientists, right? How can a scientist come up with a scientific idea? And then the idea will go and compute, okay? In our case, in our lab, we suddenly switch back to computing a lot, but we also care a lot about experiments, as I show you. And then you have to go back to analysis, iterate, and then go back to generate another hypothesis, and then do computing or experimentation and come back, okay? And that is the idea of what we want an AI scientist to do, okay? So I think that's kind of like the quest that I am personally on. And here in Toronto, we received the largest grant ever given in Canada, which is amazing. Actually, the three panelists here, actually all of us are basically leading, together with many other professors, this very large grant, okay? That actually is working on accelerating scientific discovery of molecules and materials, and also not only that, but biological materials, as you will hear as well. Okay, so what you see here is very nice because this is researchers at the University of Toronto building this very low-cost automated equipment with AI that can see and can move and touch things and manipulate them so that these AI brains that I was telling you about also have hands and actually can go ahead and execute chemical experiments or materials experiments, right? So this is the kinds of things that are being developed thanks to this Canada First Research Excellence Fund grant called the Acceleration Consortium. The Acceleration Consortium, it's a big initiative, again, not only those $200 million from the federal government, but thanks to, people mentioned Scott, thanks to Scott, we're building a building. I don't know how many of you have seen this. We heard about Seed Smith, so across Seed Smith, you have this construction site. How many of you have seen this construction site? Supposedly, and this is, I'm gonna hold up Scott to that, supposedly, if there are no more construction delays, there haven't been any actually, we are on track to actually get this thing open in the fall, okay? So you're welcome to come and tour all the robots and AI scientists that are gonna be roaming the halls, okay? So there's gonna be all these, carts carrying chemicals and these robot arms that you saw. So what you saw were videos taken in our temporary spaces that are all around the university, okay? So that's what the Acceleration Consortium is all about, and we also are working on many, many entrepreneurial activities. I cannot disclose to you because I don't want our founders to suddenly come out to the world like this, but we have a lot of incubating projects at the Acceleration Consortium that should be coming out as things become mature. So I'll tell you just in the last 3 minutes one of the things that we are doing, which is El Agente. So we decided to unapologetically think of using Latin American colors for this particular project and call it in Spanish, so a little bit like Bad Bunny, right? So after all, we're in Canada, right? What we're doing in El Agente is trying to accelerate scientific discovery, okay? So turns out that still scientific discovery is limited by human bandwidth, like a human is the bottleneck. So what do you think about that? Because humans actually go and make ideas and think about the idea and go and try to do it by hand and so on. So the question of El Agente is it possible to have something as powerful as your favorite LLM model? And now we say Claude, okay? I'm not gonna say ChatGPT anymore. So it's always Claude, okay? So you're gonna go to Claude and you're gonna ask Claude or one of these models like Kimi and ask them, hey, like I have this question. The problem with those models is that they really don't know how to compute behind, okay? So what we're doing in El Agente is doing things like this. We ask it a chemistry question, a very complicated chemistry question, and El Agente launches a network of about 60 agents, okay? And these 60 agents are talking to each other and doing these very complicated quantum calculations. And after that, they come back to you with an answer that I'm very proud to say, last year, El Agente was at the level of a PhD student, and now El Agente is, it was the level of a graduate student, and now it's the level of a PhD student, right? So together with Professor Vanilla Bernales, that is on the audience, and me, we have a group of about 40 developers making agentes for drug discovery, agentes for solid state materials, chemical safety agents, you name it. You can name almost any problem in chemistry. We already have an agent to solve it. And this is thanks to the really startup-like mentality that we built in our research group, that we have stand-up meetings every week. We're really rapidly building these academic products, and we're about to launch a platform to the world so people can actually start playing around with El Agente. So the only thing I can say is that you can actually have the same execution workflows that the first startup company I co-founded, okay, when I was still in Boston, it's called Calculario. Another Spanish word, it means the place where you do calculations. Turns out Calculario was acquired by a company called Qlux, and Qlux still exists, and they're making devices. Some of the calculations that the scientists at Calculario used to make now can be fully done in a La Gente in about $25 of compute and LLM costs, right? So this is about, if you were to actually cost out how much an engineer, computational chemist was doing that, it's probably about $15,000 of their time. So that would really empower a lot of us scientists to actually do much, much more. And this is the kinds of things that we're thinking right now in our research group with La Gente. And obviously, the main dream is to connect La Gente to those robots. The challenge of connecting La Gente to those robots is chemical safety. We don't want those robots to do something evil or poison somebody or explode in front of somebody or something like that. And that is what's limiting us from still doing what we really want, which is connecting these AI agents all the way down and closing the discovery loop, not only virtually, but also in the lab. And with my last 10 seconds, I'm going to show you some of the people that developed La Gente. And hopefully, like in this 10-minute tour, I gave you an idea of the kinds of big level things that we're doing and some of the recent, shallow, still wide, but things that, in our case, our research group is actually working on. And thank you for your time. I guess I will go back there and then come up again.
Thank you, Alain. So maybe we'll see you performing at the Super Bowl like Bad Bunny in the future. Next up on stage, also part of our panel as well, a professor here, but also a founder and entrepreneur in her own right and doing some, I would say, very important work right now. Christine is the CEO of Intrepid Labs, and her company is changing and using AI for drug proliferation and drug discovery, and hopefully, in the future, solving some very important health needs. So let's welcome Christine to the stage and say hi to her young son, who's also here with her today as well.
Thank you, Jean. Well, I'm really excited to be here today in such a beautiful building, rainy day, but I can feel the energy within the University of Toronto entrepreneurship community, and it is so inspiring. So I've been at the University of Toronto, this does age me when I say this, but for almost 25 years, professor in the Leslie Dan Faculty of Pharmacy, and a little over 2 years ago, we launched a company called Intrepid Labs. But before I get started a little more on that, I'm gonna ask the question, how many people here are parents? So I'm also a parent, obviously. My youngest is here today. He's 6'6", so he doesn't look that young. But I remember when he had his first fever. High fever, middle of the night, small child, you're panicking, and I'm looking for children's Tylenol. Children's Tylenol is different from the Tylenol that you and I take ourselves, right? Which is usually a tablet or a capsule. But the drug in children's Tylenol and the Tylenol that we take is exactly the same. That active pharmaceutical ingredient, acetaminophen, is the same. It's the formulation that's different. And importantly for a child is a suspension. And this enables us to administer that drug to the child in a safe way at the right dose. So we can think of drugs as passengers. Oh, I don't have the, oh, it's right here. Thank you so much. We can think of drugs as passengers, and we can think of the formulations as the plane. So passengers need a plane to get to where they need to go. The drug needs a formulation to get to where it needs to go. And Intrepid Labs was launched to completely transform the way that we're developing drug formulations. Our goal is to set every single drug up for success before it enters clinical development to make a meaningful impact in patients' lives. And as somebody that's worked in this space for 25 years, I can tell you that formulation has often been underappreciated when it comes to the whole drug development pipeline. But this is actually a really good time to be in this space. Formulation is finally being seen as a major value driver. Just last week, this was a deal that was done between Boston-based Vivtex and Novo Nordisk. $2.1 billion for Novo Nordisk to access formulation technology that Vivtex has developed for peptide and protein-based therapeutics. This is not a small bump in the market. This is the market placing a multi-billion-dollar bet on formulation technology. And it makes sense. Formulations truly transform molecules into medicines. They productize that drug. They ensure that it's stable during shipping and storage. They can enhance the performance of the drug by improving its efficacy, ensuring that it's delivered to its target site in the body and is prevented from causing any unwanted toxic side effects. Importantly, formulation can be a major driver for patient adoption. It can improve the patient adherence and compliance to medications. You can have the absolute best therapy on a planet. If a patient isn't going to take it, can't take it, won't take it, you're done. So here I've said that formulation can create enormous value, and yet we still have a problem, and it shows up in the numbers. So these are some of the numbers. Each year, more than $100 billion is spent on R&D associated with drug development globally. At any given time, more than 10,000 molecules are moving through clinical development. About 4,500 of those are in first-in-human phase 1 clinical trials, and this is the one that burns. 90% of those drugs will fail in the clinic. Only 1 in 10 will make it through. And in many cases, up to 50% of cases, this is due to poor formulation. And why is that? Because we as formulation scientists have this tendency to just do what we know. We see a molecule, we've got to formulate that molecule, we look for other molecules that are like it, and we say, well, what's worked for that? Let's start there. Let's go through some trial and error, a little bit of design of experiment. We get something that's good enough and we move it forward, with the thinking that down the road we'll further optimize it. Intrepid is taking a completely different approach. We've designed proprietary AI algorithms, automated workflows, and we're using those to converge on lead candidate formulations as quickly as possible. We start with a target product profile that doesn't just include things like the dosage form, let's say a tablet, and the amount of drug and how quickly or slowly it should be released. We include things like manufacturability, cost of goods, supply chain resilience. These objectives are never thought of at the very beginning, and yet they're the reasons why we have products that are not commercially viable and fail. Over the last 2 years, we've been building an AI-driven robotic engine. This includes proprietary algorithms, as I said before, that we've benchmarked against traditional design of experiment approaches and shown that we can gain a 20 to 60-fold in efficiency. Beyond that, we've created agentic approaches that enable another further 10-fold gain in efficiency. And we're using this for 2 different purposes. On the one side, because we're developing this technology, and I would never want to develop technology in a vacuum, we're partnering with industry. And these partnerships are critical to enabling us to validate this technology, to credentialize us within the market, to benchmark us against industry's best practices. Of course, it also creates some revenue, which is great for us from the perspective of extending runway, de-risks us to investors, but very importantly, some of these partners have deep pockets. And what that means is they can take these formulations and move them ahead into the clinic. This is critical for us when you're developing a technology like this, clinical validation. Beyond that, when we're not working with partners, we're running these workflows 24/7, gathering data to train algorithms, and identifying novel formulation technologies. We're filing IP around those delivery technologies, and these are available for licensing out to pharma partners down the road. This is building long-term value in the company. So this is an example of what we can do. A company came to us, they'd finished up a phase 1 clinical trial. They recognized that they had a challenge with their formulation. It was an oral tablet. And they said, we've got a couple weeks for you. Can you help us out? We'd like to get a better formulation to move forward into phase 2. They also, unfortunately, had very limited quantity of their drug. And this is a common problem. Most companies have small quantities of pure drug. So we started on this problem. Within our design space that we could consider to make these tablets, there were more than 11 different materials that we could include at different levels. And they had quite a complex manufacturing process because there were some stability issues with this drug that needed to be overcome. So when you consider all of the possible composition and processing parameters within that design space, there's more than 200,000 unique experiments that would need to be conducted. We had less than 2 weeks and a small amount of drug. And so using our AI-driven automated workflows, we explored less than 1% of that design space, identified several lead candidates for them that matched their target product profile in less than 2 weeks. So they were ready and on their way. We tech transferred the formulation to them. And this is the slide that I think really demonstrates that in less than 2.5 years, we can execute and deliver value. So to this point, we've worked on more than 18 programs with more than 10 industry partners. We have 12 validated workflows that extend from oral, liquid, and solid formulations to high concentration biologics, a lot of interest in that area right now, and long-acting injectables. Importantly, in every case, we're tech transferring these formulations to our partners, and just last year, 8 of these were GMP manufactured at scale and are progressing to the clinic in 2026. This is huge for us. This is clinical validation. So this is a technology and a company that's being built in Canada, and a technology that's being validated through deployment globally with our partners. This is one of the partnerships that we're most excited about, and we've made this publicly known. We're working with Quotient Sciences. This is a global CRDMO that's headquartered in the UK with sites in the US. More than a decade ago, Quotient developed an approach called translational pharmaceutics to fast-track drugs through formulation development and clinical development. This program has been used on more than 500 programs globally with more than 100 different companies. And a Tufts Center for Drug Development study demonstrated the significant cost savings, millions of dollars saved, and more than a year saved through this program in terms of clinical development. Over the last 18 months, we've taken our core AI algorithm Andromeda and created an AI-driven version of translational pharmaceutics that is now being used in live clinical programs with a full rollout planned later this year. And already, we're demonstrating significant reductions in the amount of drug that's required, significant reduction in the number of formulations that need to be considered. This is all time and cost savings. And importantly, we create a much richer data set that enables better, more confident decisions to be made. And these are clinical decisions. So just in short, drug discovery efforts create the passengers, Intrepid creates the plane. We're looking to make formulation faster, more data-rich, more translatable, with a goal towards setting every drug up for success before it enters clinical development and making a meaningful impact in patients' lives. We're proud to be launched from the University of Toronto and the Acceleration Consortium and to be building just across the street in the Mars Discovery District with a number of our scientists also sitting at Mila in Montreal. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Christine. Fascinating work that we're seeing done here at the University of Toronto. And to round this all off, before we get into our panel discussion, I want to welcome to the stage Melissa Radich, who is the chair of the Canada Research Group here, and she makes a lot of this possible, and also an entrepreneur and founder in her own right. And again, biotech should be one of the largest, shall we say, recipients, and probably one of the largest discoveries we'll see because of the proliferation of AI. Melissa, welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me. As you heard, my name is Melita. I'm a part of the Acceleration Consortium, and it's really my pleasure to speak to you today about AI and robotics in organs on a chip. So this really sounds like science fiction, but there is a huge need for it. So I would ask you, maybe look to your left, look to your right, look in front of you, behind you. What do you see? Well, you see your friends, and everybody is different, right? There is no two people who are identical in this room, right? And you can see that, our beautiful diversity of humans in the world, you can see it in the slide here. And I'll take a look into this slide. This is our most common animal model for drug discovery and any kind of biological investigation. It's a very, very strikingly different picture because we use inbred mice and rats to do biology. And when we are developing drugs, we test them in inbred mice and rats. And very often, the first time a molecule sees a human or a human tissue is when it's given to the volunteers in phase 1 clinical trials. And so just I think these two pictures illustrate why so many drugs fail in clinical trials. But there is a hope, right? So with iPS cells, we could take cells from a patient, reprogram them, and make very, very tiny tissues. They're basically under 100 microns or so. What does that mean? Some of them are very small. They're as thin as your hair. But they have everything that you need in them to figure out human biology. And then by taking your drugs and applying them to those human tissues, and they can be patient-specific, we can get information about how drugs work in human disease and then we give it to regulatory agencies, and then hopefully we're going to get better drugs. So this is not science fiction. Basically, FDA recently announced FDA 2.0 Modernization Act, where they will be prioritizing tests from human cells and tissues over animal data. We have something similar in Canada called BLS5, and there are big consortia that are telling us how we can validate our models. How can we figure out if they work the same as real human tissues? There are already successes. For example, there is a drug for cystic fibrosis that's approved entirely based on organoid research. And the reason for this is this cystic fibrosis, this illness which they call drowning on the inside, has many, many mutations, and it is impossible to make a good animal model, a good rat or mouse model of cystic fibrosis. So this is what we do in my lab at U of T. I'll go actually, I moved a bit too fast. We build these beating heart tissues that we can use to also figure out contractility, as well as to record tiny little action potentials from them, which you can see on the left here. And these are entirely human-based. You can see that they have blood vessels, and they have immune cells in them, and they have beating heart cells that are actually making the whole movie beat. In Toronto, working with our colleagues from SickKids, from University Health Network, and from St. Mike's, we used patient cells to mimic disease of actual patients here in Toronto. And some of them had dilated cardiomyopathy from UHN. Some of them had pediatric heart disease, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And we also modeled COVID-induced heart failure. And with this technology that was developed at the University of Toronto, quite a while back in 2014, we started a company called Tara Biosystems that was providing this mature, very well-validated heart tissue for drug discovery. They had their own genetic and biological models. And then if you think about AI companies and AI for drug discovery, they have many, many molecules, but they don't have biology. And organs on a chip and organoids can provide human biology. So our company got acquired by an AI company called Valo Health. And together, just last year, they achieved a $4.6 billion deal with Novo Nordisk for cardiometabolomic drug discovery. So this shows you 3 ingredients that you need to move drug development forward: good biology, AI design molecules, and somebody who has regulatory and clinical trial experience. But now, if everyone in the whole world is going to use organs on a chip, how are we going to make this work? Everything that I showed you with our beautiful models that helped patients in Toronto, and now they will be helping with the discovery of new drugs, was done by hand. They're actually very skilled people in my lab. They go to the clean room, they build these devices, they cultivate cells, they have to come on the weekends, they work long hours, cells get contaminated. How can we scale this up? And that's where self-driving labs that are powered by AI and robotics come in. And with self-driving labs, we can make tissue models that are scalable, functional, and predictive. So to do that, we have to reconcile the language of humans and robots, right? If I were a human growing cells in the lab, this is what I would do. I would have an incubator, a microscope, and I would kind of move in between these machines and grow my cells, look under the microscope, figure out if the cells are healthy or not healthy, if they're contaminated. There is a huge element of human intuition in this process. They're literally like little babies, these cells. Sometimes it takes weeks and months to actually get them to grow. And we've grown tissues for 8 months, believe me. We've done that experiment. It's a very hard experiment. But to teach a robot to do that, what we recently did is, with the team of Alain and Florian, we basically just designed a robot that can do only 3 things: optical density perception, visual servoing, and pipetting. Only 3 operations. And using behavioral trees, this robot, a very simple robot, but it's proof of concept, can entirely independently Okay, maybe you can click on this movie in the back, and entirely independently can grow the entire process of cell growth from seeding to cultivation and onwards. And here you can see this robot uses 3D printed pipettes. And here are the growth curves that it got. They're completely identical to what a human would get. But now, how do we move from simple cell culture to more complicated cell culture? And here we have more advanced robots that have a very advanced visual surveying algorithms. And these robots, they can look at you and see you. They can see plates. They can see things that they have to move around. But they can also look at the microscale. They can look at organoids. They can pick the organoids and place them. And this is not something that you can do with your eye. And by doing that, that enables us to move to a 384 well format, where now you can see a cardiac organoid that is fully vascularized, and a robot created this culture automatically, which you should be able to see in this movie if we can get it to run. Yeah, so here it is. You can now see a very customized aseptic enclosure, and the robot will do the entire cell culture picking and placing the organoids in a very high throughput 384 well format. And now you can see a tiny little submicron hard tissue that the robot will pick and place on top of a vascularized bed to create vascularized heart muscle like that. So using this approach, we created models of cancer metastasis. And by putting many, many organoids in that tiny little sub-millimeter size well, we can create the entire human body on a chip and study how metastasis goes into different organs. And so this is what it would look like if you zoom out. You can see the entire 384 well plate with vasculature, brain, cardiac, as well as cancer organoids. But what if we can do something better? You know, those organoids, they're a little round. What's so special about them? What if we could 3D print entire organs in an SDL? And you can see that here. Our team calls that physical intelligence in action. And the first thing what I learned in robotics, what is done, they usually simulate the robot motion. Because as Alain said, we don't want to have killer robots. We don't want to have a robot, you turn it on, and the arm just goes and slaps somebody who's working. And after that, you can see this was safe motion. The robot picks up what looks like a huge syringe and 3D prints right within the SDL. And what it's going to 3D print here is something that is sized like human gestation 19 ventricle. And this is important because there are a lot of kids who are born with single ventricle disease. Heart disease is the most common congenital malformation. And using this robot vision, we can 3D print this ventricle in the SDL right now. So this is the wonderful team that did all the work. What we usually do as profs, we just have ideas. And Daniel, Channer, Yimu, Ilya, Rosanna, and Karen did all the work that I showed you. And I think what I showed you today also opens up a big ethical question. These robots, when they work with your cells or my cells, they will know that you're going to get heart disease before you know it. So what do we do with that information? And this is something that's an open question for the future. And thank you very much, and we'll be happy to take your questions now.
Milika, thank you so much. Alain, Christine, could I welcome you to the stage as we start this conversation? And so for the next 30 minutes, we are going to talk about Canada's next AI moment and ambition that the world can trust. So obviously my first question to you, because we are running out of time, we want to get everybody out of here so they can enjoy dinner tonight. But all of you have fascinating presentations when it comes to biotech. Is that necessarily the next find, the next evolution in AI? Is that going to be the next unlock, do you think?
The fascinating presentation or the...
Well, all of it. It was fascinating, whether it's human
there's so
engineered
much going
cardiac
on
tissue.
here, right? It's such a broad range of advancement. It's amazing, really, to see how AI is infused and really enhancing, right, all of this.
Well, the reason I bring that up is because University of Toronto, we know about, of course, Jeffrey Hinton, AlexNet, Ilya Sutskever, and that was an LLM model. But your presentations here seem to point to me that maybe the next evolution or the next big thing from the university here in the next find could be in biotech. Is that, would you agree to that?
Oh, I see what you're, yeah, so AI4, I think, right? And so you think about the Acceleration Consortium, it's AI for accelerated discovery of molecules and materials. And those molecules and materials can be used in quite a wide range of applications and sectors.
Yeah.
So I think we've seen the foundational work being done around AI, certainly so much of it at the University of Toronto. And we have just phenomenal, deep, depth, breadth, excellence of domain experts across the institution. So they can start to use AI for different purposes. And that's what I think you saw today.
Yeah, well, Ellen, you're from Harvard, so you lived in Boston, and you've been here at University of Toronto for 8 years. I'm just wondering, because I was having this conversation with John, and being an alumni, obviously I want to sing the praises of a great institution and a learning institution like the university, but do you think that there is enough, we're singing enough praises of what we're doing here? I mean, the technology that we're proliferating, I just don't think we're making a big enough noise for the world to pay attention.
Well, yeah, I think.
And we should.
No, I mean the question is like we just saw this nice popcorn from the entrepreneurs here at the University of Toronto. Are the people that develop this popcorn in the room? So I want to try them. They look amazing, but you see, they are against Frito-Lay's, which has like perhaps a more brand recognition. I think that is perhaps the difference between Harvard and other universities. The thing they have mainly is that I think after Coca-Cola and Nike is number 3 or 4 in the world of name recognition. So, but that's just because of the movies and etc. I will not move back there, and you can quote me on that. I'm saying this publicly in any way or circumstance. I think the University of Toronto is better than them in basically every direction, okay? So the people here have to know that, first of all. I mean, we are larger in scale. We're in a much, much better country that has much, much better social fabric, and we have, frankly, better students. So we have everything. The thing is that we're more humble, okay? We just sit down and get things done, okay? So that's the comparison. But now something that I was inspired when I was in Boston between Harvard and MIT, some people have heard me say this story, is the creation of the Broad Institute, right? Because basically Kendall Square there in Boston used to be like a place where there were broom factories. And what they were able to do there is create the biotech industry there around these 2 universities. And I think the Acceleration Consortium, I think this bet that the Canadian government gave on us, gives us the idea of thinking about Toronto as one of these new hubs. And the same way San Francisco has the chips, and Boston perhaps has some biotech, we should be the capital of AI for materials, and that ranges from all the way from batteries all the way to organ on a chip and drug formulation and all sorts of other applications of AI as Christine mentioned. So I think the way you want to think about Toronto is as the place where we're going to be doing that. We have everything to do that. This country is a country of a lot of extraction of raw materials. We have to add the value of those extracted raw materials into actual value-added products. And the revolution that we're trying to do here at the University of Toronto is to make us the capital for that, and that's what we're here for.
But Milka, as you heard from Alain, we have the smart students, we have the know-how, we have the ambition, but we don't have depth of markets. And I don't think we're telling the story well enough. What do you think it is that's maybe keeping us back, that we should be on that global stage at that same level?
Yeah, maybe a little bit of Canadian modesty. I think that's part of it.
We're too honest, too nice?
No, too modest.
Too modest,
We are too modest, and sometimes, we feel like we are beating our drum too much if we are telling how great we are. But I think, probably our colleagues in the South, they don't have that impediment, so.
Of modesty? But Christine, do you agree? I mean, the ecosystem just needs to be built up, and I'm just trying to figure out how.
It's a great question. I mean, coming back to Alain's point, I will say that, I think the Canadian government sometimes has this tendency to take more of a peanut butter approach and just kind of spread around. And I was delighted to see the funding that the Acceleration Consortium got through the CFREF, $200 million, really historic, first time, largest grant, which was huge. And they've made some other big bets on AI, throughout the country, really, right? With Mila and Vector Institute and Amy and so on. And they need to continue to make those big bets, though. It can't be one and done, right? We have to continue to build because we actually do have this position now. I will tell you, we just closed a round for this company last year, and I was out there pitching, and people do recognize Canada as a global center of excellence in AI. Absolutely, we do. They do. And that's critical, but we need to continue to invest so that we stay at the leading edge, right? I would say one thing, in building this company, that I often look at our ecosystem and say, okay, what are the strengths? And that is one of the greatest strengths, is the AI, machine learning, software engineering talent.
Absolutely.
But then and also life sciences talent. So as an AI4 in the life sciences space company, this is a great place to launch. But then there are other areas where I say, where we're a little more challenged. And those are things like capital, capital to grow and scale companies, partnering, so you've got to look more globally for some of the larger partners, and then talent in some key areas that comes with having an ecosystem with kind of, for example, large pharma R&D, right? People with 5, 10, 15 years. But it's not to say that you can't access that through global partnering. I mean, COVID has done that for us, right? We can connect with anybody anywhere. There are however many people attending today virtually.
Right, you say that. I agree with you, Christine.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you've sobered up to the facts that 68% of startups from Canada, they don't live in Canada because they feel like they don't have the access to funding or the talent. So they have to go outside the borders. So what do we need to do to change that trend? Alain, Malika, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think we're hosted here by the University of Toronto Entrepreneurship Program. I was lucky enough to co-lead for a couple years. Then I did the acceleration consortium, so I had to leave that. One only has 24 hours in a day. But in the Creative Destruction Lab, which is one of our big incubators, we had a CDL Matter, where we're basically incubating molecules in the materials and molecule space, right? So I think the way we do this is by showing, by moving, by acting, that's what I like to call the consortium acceleration. I like to tell the people in the acceleration consortium, you accelerate or stagnate. So these conversations of comparing ourselves to other countries, I think do us a disservice, because what we need to be thinking about is, what is the strategic position that we have? We're a middle power. Our prime minister has taught us how to think. And that's how we have to think. We're a middle power. Who are our allies, okay? So those are the people that we want to work with. If we want to raise capital where? There's capital in Singapore. There's capital in Korea. There's capital in Europe. Of course, we can raise capital south of the border, but these people can also be our clients. I think in this new world where the countries are becoming a little bit more realigning, we should also realign our venture capital, our entrepreneurship, our partnerships. So if I were to start a company now, I will focus on that kind of more global picture and stop comparing ourselves to some other countries. We are who we are, and we can build better than anybody else in the planet.
True, but it is a global competitive landscape.
Bring them on.
Okay, wow, Alain, he's competitive juice. But you just mentioned the $200 million grant that the Acceleration Consortium just received. That's still a drop in the bucket when you compare it to, say, what's happening in the US, which is doling out billions and billions of dollars. I know, because I speak to them each and every day. But Malika, in your view, do you think you're getting enough support from the Canadian government so that there is this vibrant startup and research community?
So I think research-wise, we are definitely not getting enough support. I think we need, talk to your MP and explain why science and engineering are important. And I think this has been forgotten, maybe because everybody listens to their YouTube doctor or their Instagram scientist. So they don't need a professor, right? And I think there is, just generally in the society, it's undervalued. And it's very hard call for them to say we should increase research funding, because there are so many needs around the country. But it is really important because we create and help people maintain really competitive edge, right? The best thing about being in Toronto, I would say, are my trainees. I think we have the best, most amazing trainees. And I gave 400 talks or more, 500 maybe, all over the world, and I never see that anywhere. Mm-hmm.
But they also get, because they're so excellent, they are excellent here in Toronto. I know, I've seen the wonderful students, but they also, because they're so excellent, they get recruited and taken out of the Canadian system and they go elsewhere. So when you say you need more help and assistance from the Canadian government, is it just funding, or do there have to be some legal changes or law changes, or what is it that you need from Ottawa?
Vote for funding.
Yeah,
Vote for funding.
Melissa's going to say research funding, right?
Research funding.
So it's money? It's just money?
You know, I would actually say, because I'm looking at it from I've lived in Canada all my life. I love this country. You know, but I have to say, you know, we launched this company 2.5 years ago. So walking in a CEO's shoes that's raising money and looking to partner and really trying to build a global company that's headquartered in Toronto, it's made me look around the ecosystem and kind of appreciate what we do have and then what we don't have. And one of the things I would say for the government, because some of it is government, is I want them to make really big bets. And I think that is what they're doing in AI. And those bets should be based on identifying, you know, where can we win? How can we win? Why would we win? And I'm hoping it continues to be AI. It doesn't have to be AI for life sciences, meaning it may not directly benefit me. But if they make those big bets, that will bring partners capital, and it will have a ripple effect that will benefit us all. I will say in the AI data science space, we are seeing companies that had almost no R&D footprint left in Canada come back into Canada. Roche has a center of excellence for AI here. Sanofi has a center of excellence for AI here. AstraZeneca's made a big bet and set up a big facility for data scientists here. Unilever's done the same thing. They're hiring the amazing positions. They have come back here to secure the talent. So I still believe, like, we're building something. We're at an inflection point, and the government just has to keep going, and it can't think that it's one and done.
Ellen?
Yes, let me add something that I was just discussing today with somebody at lunch. It was very relevant. We were discussing this and what other countries have, and south of the border, we have this organization that the lab I co-lead actually has received funding since it opened in 2006, and it's DARPA. And DARPA sounds pretty sinister because they are a Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. So you might think DARPA is all about making weapons. And ultimately, yes, there are some areas of DARPA that probably are pretty dark, but a lot of the funding of DARPA goes directly to basic research that could have dual use, but it's amazing basic research. And my work on quantum computing, my work on self-driving labs, actually before getting money from Canadian government,
That's right.
our lab got $12 million from DARPA. So if I was telling the Canadian government to do one thing, it will be to create tomorrow a very strong Canadian ARPA. But the reason I'm saying ARPA is because this country has the benefit of not having to spend so much money on the military. Obviously, we're increasing our military spending, but we are not driven by a military industrial complex. So we can use DARPA-like money and DARPA-like ideas to innovate in what we care about here, which is public healthcare, the environment, developing our resources. And what we need, I think, is funding agencies that do not take a year since you submit a grant to you get the grant, and the grant size is smaller than it should be. So we should have larger grants in our traditional funding agencies. We should also have fast funding agencies directed to the priorities of the nation, such as DARPA, and continue having these large projects like the Exploration Consortium as we move into a world where we need to have very targeted discoveries for the benefit of a country.
Well, DARPA is responsible for, well, we have the internet because of DARPA. Self-driving cars was also developed by DARPA funding as well.
That's correct.
So yeah, that would be great if we had a Canadian version.
So that's the most important thing. Yeah.
But do you also feel that this administration under Carney much better when it comes to providing the assistance for developments here than, say, the previous administration? I'm just wondering what the trajectory is right now. Is it better or is it worse since April 2005?
I can speak. I'm not afraid to say that I think it's positive. I think this year we announced a fantastic program to bring people from abroad. Okay, it's going to bring a bunch of professors. I came under such a program in the Canada 150 Research Chairs program, and now we created the Impact Plus Chairs program that's going to bring many more people from abroad. Okay, including some people that don't want to be somewhere else, and they could be here. Okay, so that's a fantastic thing for Canada, and we did that this year. And hopefully next year, we focus inward and we found our own scientists, which I think this is something that many of us are trying to tell Ottawa. So, okay, the first year was to poach very fancy people from outside, which is fine. The next year it should be to boost our own internal ecosystem. So I do hope that our Canadian government follows such rumors and actually invest in us in the next cycle. So I am pretty optimistic that this is the right administration for the times for Canada.
Christine, what do you think? Are they doing enough to take advantage of these times, whether it's the H-1B visas, right? Also attracting more international students.
Absolutely. We just saw announcements this week, right? This last week, because Carney's been in India, and he announced 100 million, I think it was, for Indian students to come here. So I think we're seeing, and this program is akin, the program that Alon is referring to is the reason why we were able to recruit him. It's a little different, but it's similar, right? So you get a talent like Alon, and you can build something around it, and that also attracts other talent. So absolutely, for
Okay,
sure.
well, let's talk also, because you brought up the military, and this week I would say probably the biggest topic in AI is about Anthropic working with the Pentagon, and then OpenAI saying we'll step in, and whether or not there should be some very serious guardrails when it comes to either surveillance of the population or AI use in autonomous weapons. From your perspective, Canada, do we have the right guardrails and the ambition that the world can trust? Alain, you're outspoken, so I'll go to you first.
We need to do more. Yes, we do. We have some AI giants like Cohere, which was co-founded by AI from people from the University of Toronto, and that's fantastic, but we need to have more different companies doing AI here in Canada. And I was really struck by an official from Korea that came to meet with the Acceleration Consortium. They wanted to come and learn how the Acceleration Consortium was running, which was really cool, right? Like this is like a Korean former minister, senator of Korea or something like that. I don't remember if he was in parliament, in what parliament he was there.
That's okay, in government.
Anyway, this government official came and told me very seriously, very stoically Korean, and says, Korea needs a national language model, right? Period. And I started thinking about what happens if we enter a conflict and somebody cuts off our access to Claude or access to ChatGPT. What's going to happen to us if suddenly that is cut off from us, right? So if you really go to those scenarios, we need to be very independent. And I think what the government and also our investors here, which by the way, should invest double and triple and quadruple, more Dragon Dens and more things like that. You know, we should have this kind of national mentality where we have to be prepared to be more independent in any circumstance. Mm-hmm. And I think in the language model space, I would love to see a Mistral, like this French company, right, that has their own model.
Is that open source, I believe, Mr.
Open source or not open source is a very technical discussion. For example, China likes to open source their models, mm-hmm. and that's another question. But having a more Canadian options, I think, in terms of AI, of those large language models will give us more strategic independence.
In the meantime, though, I mean, I can tell you that day in, day out, when it comes to artificial intelligence, a lot of our audience members, two big questions they always ask me. But the first one is, can I trust robots not to turn into the Terminator and kill us all tomorrow? And so I'm sure you have that dinner conversations too. And I'm just wondering, Christine, what do you say to those type of?
Nobody's asked me that question yet.
Really?
No.
Not at dinner?
No.
We get
Not
that
at
all
dinner.
the time.
Not at dinner. But I will say that, you know, we're developing products. So I do think a lot and with the pharmaceutical industry, which is heavily regulated, as it needs to be because drugs are going into patients. So we've thought about safety and security since day one. And spoken with regulators early. And that's what I would tell any founder, because I think there are probably a lot of founders here, startup companies here. You can't think that thinking about safety and security is going to slow you down. In fact, it will speed you up in the long run. So you need to get ahead of it. And so that's what we've been going through, putting all of the processes, policies, procedures, guidelines in place, to ensure that we meet the certifications that are necessary to work with some of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. And I would just say to everyone, think about it early. Yeah.
And safety is it seems like it's accretive, it's a positive.
It's mission critical.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Now, the second question that we get asked all the time, day in, day out, Ellen, is will AI take jobs, obviously? Will robot replace me in the future? And the reason we have to talk about that is because at the Acceleration Consortium, you're building the next generation of technology, right? What is that going to do to people, say, in the labs or right now working at pharmaceutical companies, et cetera? Should they be afraid that they may not have a job in the future?
To me, that's a very multi-layered question. I can start with the, and I'm an optimist, and let me explain what I mean by that. A multi-layered question depends on the career stage a lot, right? Like if you are more of a senior person in a company and you're exposed to these tools, I think there has to be very important training programs to be able to use the tools that are being developed, right? Like imagine that somebody was doing some sort of chemistry by hand, and now there's a machine that allows you to do the chemistry 10, 20 times faster. If you're a company, you know that the biggest asset on that person is actually their accumulated knowledge over decades of what works and doesn't work in that particular chemistry. And that is not in ChatGPT. That's just in that person's brain. So that person, in that particular career stage, you just want to make sure these people are actually comfortable with the new tools that come in, and the very good ones, obviously, until they retire, they will be on top of what's coming up. And if you see how a biology lab looked like even 50 years ago, compared to a biology lab now, biology labs now are extremely automated. We, the chemistry people, are actually way behind, and we're starting to automate more and more, but compared to other disciplines, right, the labs are almost unrecognizable, and people move through that entire trajectory. Now, the other question is our young people, right? Like, I mean, if a young person is studying chemistry, will they be worried about a self-driving lab? And my answer is no, they should learn how to develop them. So I think for the young people in the audience, which there are some, and I see also a bunch of old people from other ages, but for the young people in the audience, I think the most important thing is that when I ask a chemist, do you know how to program? And they say no, then I worry, right? It's like, no, I don't think anybody, in the early generations, everybody in the early generation should know how to program a computer and use a computer and like.
Are we talking about vibe coding or coding?
Coding and vibe coding. To vibe code, you need to code. To run, you need to walk.
I just talk into Claude Code and they build an app for me, so I don't think I necessarily need to.
No, it's true. You can. I built a website the other day in Lovable too. But if there's a bug in the website or there's a bug in your application, you need to sometimes go in there and clean it. And if you understand the principles, it'll be much more easier for you to understand how to vibe code or vibe chemistry. Maybe one day we'll be doing vibe chemistry. And I think it will happen because we are already asking these language models. In El Agente, for example, you can ask El Agente, why does this molecule smell this way? Questions like that.
Okay.
And El Agente will go and do a calculation and explain to you why the molecule smells that way. Yeah. And that's something that it will be vibe chemistry and it will democratize chemistry too. So I think
exciting.
I think that's where we need to go. We need to go to this area where people are trained at all stages, and these machines will actually allow us to be more productive. That's my view.
Well, Milica, I loved your presentation because there was that robotic arm, and I was thinking about automation, and I was also recently looking at the statistics of automated jobs, and I think the World Economic Forum said close to 8% of jobs will be automated by 2030. I mean, that's millions of jobs around the world that could be gone and replaced by robots. I mean, should people be concerned by that?
Yeah, I would just say what we are trying to automate are jobs that you want to automate. Like, you don't want to be here on the weekend feeding cells. You would rather be doing something fun at home with your kids or with, exploring something new to do. So we are focusing on automating those most tedious, repetitive tasks that only people who love it want to do. Right? So sometimes people want to send me an email, they say, I want to work in your lab. And then, I say, did you grow cells before? And when they say no, I'm not sure. Because you either love it or you hate it, and it's very tedious. So that's where the robots could really make a huge difference. And I think humans have seen these cycles in the past, right? There are manual jobs from 1700s that nobody knows how to do anymore.
Right.
Maybe there is somebody in some university who studies 17th century, and there is one person in the world who knows how to do that job. But the economy is growing as a result of new technologies, and I think there will be new jobs. Adaptation, and
evolution.
These most difficult, most tedious jobs, I think there is a promise that they will be taken by robots.
So less lab techs in the future, you think? Is that what you're saying?
No. We need lab techs to fill all the paperwork that needs to be. It is literally impossible to run a lab without a few research associates and lab techs that are filling up all the paperwork that is needed to.
Yeah.
There's often still a human in the loop.
Yeah,
right?
there is a
It's
human for sure.
overseeing
Yeah.
all of this and making sure that everything's going smoothly, right? So one of the things that I would say that I love about the Acceleration Consortium and the University of Toronto and why we've hired a good number of graduates from the University of Toronto in our company is their bilingualism. And it's not the typical bilingualism that you see in Canada. It's the AI and domain expertise, right? So it's the AI and organoids or tissue engineering, AI and drug formulation, AI and medicinal chemistry. And these are the unicorns, but they won't be unicorns for long because there's so many of them graduating, in the next several years. But they're going to change the future. So I always tell students, AI is not going to replace you, but people who are willing to use AI and adopt technology will replace you, to Militz's point.
Okay. Well, we're in the final questions, and I know people are looking to get away and grab that dinner. But with the final 2 minutes here, so I have a burning question I always wanted to ask professors, and since you're some of the most world-renowned ones here, Alain, can you tell when students have used ChatGPT or Claude to do their homework and their research?
You can tell, I think, in some sense, when somebody used ChatGPT to write a paragraph for a paper or something like that. Just based on the type of wording and the way some of the things are referenced. Some of the things are sometimes not fully right. And if you're an expert, you can actually tell that there is some sort of superfluous thing mentioned there or something that is unrelated.
Yeah.
Having said so, the tools are incredible. As using the tool, for example, to ask how to cook something, to me has impressed me a lot. Like using ChatGPT as a cooking helper has been incredible. So I think the tool is there, but if you, going back to the point that you said about vibe coding, if you are not an expert in the domain, when you generate text or generate chemical information or generate scientific information from one of these models, you won't be able to tell that little piece that is missing that we the experts know how to do.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why even coding, you need to actually know what you're doing.
Yeah, and Milika, just wondering.
Yeah, what I think about it, we use spell check, right? How
Spell
well
check,
can we
yes.
spell, right? If you think about maybe our parents or grandparents, they probably could spell better than we can because we use spell check, right?
Oh, my mother, when we go to the cash register to pay for our groceries, she can, in her head, she can calculate the entire bill.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
can't do that without a
Exactly.
calculator anymore.
So what I think for writing all of these tools, ChatGPT, Claude, they're just your spell check or your calculator, your phone that you use, so long the thoughts are yours that you're putting in. And I tell the students, if your thoughts are there, and even if you have like a very structured kind of bullet point list, and you say connect this, that's probably okay. That's just like a form of a spell check. Okay. But if you tell it write something from scratch, definitely we can tell because it's fluffy. It doesn't make sense.
That's a warning.
And even when I'm doing my own research on something that I don't know a lot about, I'm like, ChatGPT, find something. I think, oh, this is amazing. But then if it's on things that I know a lot about, it's total garbage. When it comes back, I go like, no, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong.
Sense.
I think for our students and for like younger generations, the biggest deal is how do you know what is correct and what is true?
Yeah.
And your brain has to be sharp, you have to be thinking. And that will be the biggest challenge, I think, for the younger generation.
And double check it, of course. Final round here. I'm just going to ask you the same questions, all three of you, and then leave us with closing thoughts. But what are you optimistic about, Christine, and what keeps you awake at night?
What am I optimistic about? I'm just super excited about what we're building. I mean, within the Acceleration Consortium, in the University of Toronto, in Toronto more broadly, at Intrepid Labs. So super excited about the future, and I'm optimistic and excited about the potential of AI. I'm very excited about it, and automation. I did not love pipetting, so I'm on board for that. What keeps me up at night? Competition. Really, I have to say, I think a lot, as a company that's growing, I think about that a lot. So your points around that were well taken.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Milika, closing with a compliment. I love that, Christine. Extra bonus points for you.
I'm super excited about the intersection of disciplines in the Acceleration Consortium. When we work with our colleagues from computer science, and one of our students, Daniel, is in the back, and us on the biology side, is like,
all the way in the back.
how the disciplines intersect at a very, very high level is amazing. This is my most exciting project that I've had probably in decades. And so that is really something that I'm excited about it. What keeps me up at night is the thought of running out of research funding, I think. Because, you know, the way the grants haven't gone up, it's like 200K was like that 25 years ago when we started. And now, I think there is like, something has to be done. I think the grants really haven't increased at all.
Oh, wow.
Over the past 20
Fortunately,
years.
student stipends have increased.
Yeah.
Right? And salaries have increased, but yes, good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe if we increase the value of the Canadian dollar, that could actually increase in value at some point. Alain, finally for you.
I mean, every Thursday afternoon, we have our meetings for La Gente, which is like 40 young, energetic people coming and presenting. We name them in Spanish, so coming and presenting new agentes every week almost. I'm going to present to you el agente reportero, the reporting agent. What the heck is a reporting agent? Or the theoretical agent, the agente teórico. So every week that we meet in a startup-like format with these 40 students, and they're coming with faster and faster innovation thanks to AI. It's what really keeps me not only up happy, also at the university. People might say, why are you not at this other place? It's because university has that great ecosystem. And really what worries me right now more is the polarization in the world. We have a war going on. Yeah. We have a lot of geopolitical challenges. And I don't think Canada is really, is working hard towards it, but I don't think Canada is seeing the magnitude of the potential threats that we have. And I think we should actually be working harder to be ready for the possible horrible things that could happen here. So I think about those things, and that's what worries me. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you this, on a positive note, to close off this conversation, you see it day in, day out, but I feel it, this visceral ambition at this University of Toronto. And I want to thank you so much for providing this wonderful atmosphere today and for joining us today. And again, go build that next defining company, and then don't forget to come back and give back to the next generation. Thank you so much. Enjoy your evening.
No worries. So before everyone leaves, because there's prizes, I think, right, John? All right, before everybody leaves and puts their jackets on and goes out for grabbing a quick dinner, I want to extend my thanks as well to the panel this afternoon, Melissa, Christine, and Alain, and to Susan, who inspired, I think, Scott to bring Taco Bell back to Sid Smith. Just really quickly, we've all seen this discussion this afternoon, absolutely amazing in terms of what AI can do and what it can lead us towards. I want to thank Susan for her amazing moderation of the panel and the questions that we got and the discussion which ensued. I think we'd probably keep that going for a few hours. It's really not just about what it can do, but the results it can provide us, and as the sentence says here, ambition that we can trust because of the results we get. So at U of T, I want to say that we can power vibrant entrepreneurship ecosystem here. We're proud of our research excellence. We're also proud of our long track record of building viable companies, new products, new technologies, entirely new business models. Melissa, Alain, Christine, amazing what you guys showed us in terms of what you've been able to do. Intrepid Labs, Tara going through that acquisition and other opportunities, and Alain in terms of what you've done with your agentic AIs. I keep thinking about my own research and how I could have used it for that purpose. A lot of this is driven not just by our professors, but also by our students and the leadership that they provide and the inspiration that they provide to Melissa to continue to keep you inspired going forward. So I want to thank everyone for that. So again, amazing what's here at U of T in terms of the incubator space. Engineering has the entrepreneurship hatchery, but we have other accelerators here which really provide a rich series of mentors and advisors, pitch competitions, and even early stage funding. So it's really about fostering the next generation of leaders who can do, as they said, ambition the world can trust. So I know people are running out because you want to see the expo outside, and I actually do as well, because last year I went out there and I made a whole bunch of contacts and I got free samples. So a couple things, housekeeping. Those who earn prizes today, you have to better be here because there's a photo session that's going to be held with you and the prizes. I think something just fell. But the other thing is there's a raffle draw. So apparently this is my, there we go. All right, so there's something spinning. So someone's got to click this. Someone's clicked it? All right, there we go. Better be here, because if you're not here, you're not getting this prize. Am I calling this person out? A name I can't pronounce? There you go. Tina, I hope you're here because you're going to win this. All right, everyone, thanks for being here for Entrepreneurship Week at U of T. Hope you're feeling as energized as I am about this. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks, everyone.